Okay, we'll just wait for make sure we have people here. Oh, there's 12 people here already.
Oh, good. Okay. And welcome back. We're back to our last and final workshop, Colonial Schoolhouse. This is our Dame, Hannah. And did you want to introduce or did you want to say anything before we get started, Mr. Silver?
Welcome to the schoolhouse. As I said, this is our Colonial school dame, Miss Hannah.
Hello, boys and girls. Welcome to the one-room schoolhouse. I am Miss Hannah. I could not be a Mrs. because the teachers were not allowed to get married. We weren't even allowed to go on a date. So, while we're out here, first I want you to get ready to go inside. I wonder why you're all in a big mishmash out there. You should be in 2 straight lines. Boys line over here and girls line over here. Now, before we go in, I want you to look over there at our pump. That would be where we would get our water. No water or sinks inside our schoolhouse. And Richard will show you how to pump it. And that would be someone's job every day. They would have to pump the water, and we would have a ladle, and you would get a drink of water from our pail.
Miss Hannah, the well is dry.
Oh, it's dry. Oh.
I guess I'll have to go down to the stream and get water.
Oh boy, we'll have to get one of the fathers in here to fix that. Also, look over here at this little red building. That is our outhouse. Sometimes it's called a privy. That is where you would go to the bathroom. No bathrooms inside our school. You would go there any kind of weather. In the middle of a snowstorm or a rainy day, if you had to go, you would have to go right outside to go.
Sometimes also called the necessary.
Unnecessary, yes.
Because it was necessary to go.
All right, we're going to come inside, and before we get into the main room, we have a little ante room, and that's where you would hang up your coats and maybe put your lunches. And you'd have to bring your own lunch from school. For school, no cafeteria here. Everyone had a lunch that they brought. So come on in. I'm going to take off my cloak, hang it on the peg. Here's the girls' side for the girls' coats, and the boys have their side for their coats. And also you'll see here is a big pot of wood. And when we get inside, I'll show you why we need that wood. Okay, boys and girls, we're going to look around at our one-room schoolhouse, and you can see we have desks, and the younger children would sit in the front of the room, and the older children would be in the back. The girls would be on their side, and the boys would be on their side. And you see, we have nice windows. This is the only path coming in. It's a light from the windows. In the middle of our schoolhouse, we have a stove, and this is called a pot-bellied stove. It's nice and round, like Santa's belly. And it would be one of the boys' jobs to get the wood in the morning from the anteroom and bring it in and keep that fire going in the winter so it would stay warm in this room. Thank you, Richard. There we go, we got our wood ready for the day. And all the families who had a child coming to the school, it would be their job to bring wood from home, already cut and ready to go into the stove. Here we see the teacher's desk is up front, so she can keep an eye on everybody. And we have quite a few rules, and they were very strict about following those rules. And if someone, perchance, did not follow the rules, we had this.
Nope.
Hope you're all paying attention. It's very important. This is called a switch. Now, some switches would be a branch from a tree, and the teacher might even have their student who didn't follow the rules go out and get his own switch. Well, I have my own switch. This is from, it's really called a buggy whip. It's what we would use to prod the horses a little bit if they weren't going fast enough. And over here we have the chart of what would happen if people did not follow the rules. And I'm going to read just a few of them for you. Remember, boys and girls were sort of separated in these schools. So you had, if the boys and girls were caught playing together, 4 lashes from the switch. Fighting at school, 5 lashes. Quarreling at school, 5 lashes. And one of the big ones was if the boys were misbehaving to the girls. I think that means teasing them, 10 lashes. Some of the other ones, if you called each other a liar, 4 lashes. So there were quite a few rules, and they must be obeyed. Another thing that could happen if you did not follow the rules, you would be told to come over here and sit on this stool and put on the dunce cap. This is the dunce school. And the dunce hat was a round, sort of like the shape of a witch's hat. And you would have to wear it and sit here, and everyone would know that you did not follow the rules. I'm going to tell you a little bit about some of the subjects that we have. A lot of them are the same that you're learning, and the reading, writing, arithmetic, and geography, and social studies. So I understand that you have already made a quill pen, and you would be learning the letters of the alphabet. Now, in our school, we did very fancy cursive writing. And there were a lot of swirls.
Can you hold that up a little? There we go.
There we go. So, and the way you would learn this, it was repetition. You would write a whole row or maybe a whole page of just one letter until you had it right.
So there's a question about the dunce cap.
Yeah.
The dunce cap. So it just says, what is it, like a dunce cap with a question mark. So what is that?
Well, I guess it would be made out of a stiff paper maybe, or cloth, in the shape of just like a witch's hat, but doesn't have a brim. And it's just to make the person feel really bad about not listening to the teacher, not following the directions.
This is a very big question. Did feelings exist in colonial times?
Stealing?
Feelings. Did feelings?
Feelings?
Colonial, did the kids have feelings? Did they?
Oh,
Feelings.
yes, of course. Yes, they had feelings, and that was the way that children were disciplined. It was to hurt your feelings and make you feel bad.
So Miss Hannah, a dunce
Yes.
is someone who the teachers felt was incapable of learning.
Oh, really? Hmm.
That I hope that answers the question there. So that's the definition of a dunce. Someone who is incapable of learning.
Maybe they didn't do their homework, so they weren't prepared.
Right.
So this is a big question. Would children eat their lunch at their desks?
Yes, they would. Or they might let them You can see that we have some of our table desks are room for two, so people could maybe chat a little bit during lunch.
And how many hours did they go to school?
I'm not sure. Only during daylight hours. As soon as it started getting the least bit dark, they wouldn't be able to see in this room to read. And a lot of the children walked to school. They had a lot of neighboring schools that they seemed close together, but that's because the children had to walk to their school. If you were lucky, maybe you got to ride your horse, and you would put your horse out to graze while you were in school. And then in the winter, maybe you were lucky enough to have your father bring you to school with his horse and sleigh. But basically everyone walked to their neighborhood school. And I know that you have made the horn books, like this one, and they use the horn book basically to learn the alphabet, and how to recognize the letters and to be able to write the letters. So you would learn the capitals and the lowercase letters. And as soon as you knew all of those letters and the sounds that they made, then you would go on to read in your primer, because you could now sound out the words. And the primer would start with some easy selections, and they did a lot of things that would rhyme. So I'll just read one. Let's see how good we can. Has the lad a dog? The lad has a fat dog. The dog has Nat's cat. Nat and Rab run. Rab ran at a cat. So you see they're going, the lesson probably here was the short A. Every word had short A in it. But they would repeat it and read this over and over and over. A lot of repetition. And then they would go on to more interesting stories once you learn more words. So one like, it is the 1st of May. The boys and girls have gone to the woods to have a good time. See them at their play. Yeah. So
I have some more questions
the
for you.
primer. Yes.
So did students, Colonial kids, get expelled from school? Expelled?
Expelled? I think probably that could happen if the offense was big enough. They definitely would.
And how many kids fit in a schoolhouse? So how many kids do Colonial kids were there usually? The whole town?
Maybe we think maybe 20, 25. The one-room schoolhouse was for grades 1 through 8. And there was one teacher, and she taught all levels. And lots of times the older children would help the younger children with their lessons.
Was there PE, art, or music?
I don't think there was. They did have a short recess. Around lunchtime, they were able to go outside and play games. But remember, the girls played with the girls and the boys with the boys. But I don't think that they probably had art and music and phys ed as classes.
What would happen if students or kids did not do their schoolwork?
Well, that's when they would.
The harsh punishment.
Lashes would come out.
Yes.
Yes, and I'm sure that maybe the teacher would have a little talk with the parents also about that. I'm not sure how much homework they had, because at night it got dark and they would go to bed when it got dark, and they probably had just a lantern in their home, so it was difficult to do homework. So that's why it was so important that they pay attention while they were in school.
Was there a principal?
Not for each school, and I don't think there was until we went to a centralized school district. But when we had the one-room schoolhouses, I think it was pretty much up to that teacher to
You know, I
She was in
think
charge.
each of the one-room schoolhouses did have a
Did they?
committee or some sort of a board.
Could be,
Because I
yes.
know that some of the schoolhouses, there were 11 in total in the town of East Fishkill at one time. So, and I know that they had their own board of directors or trustees like the school board, you know, like our modern day school board that we have today.
Yes.
How old were you until you went to, when you were finished with school? So what was the age limit? When did you graduate from school?
Well, probably 12 or 13 for the one-room schoolhouse. And then, if you were lucky, you went to a sort of a high school, maybe. Mostly the boys would be
Their own.
learn to cook and sew.
And how old did people have to be a teacher?
Very young, as a matter of fact. I think some teachers could be 17 or 18, as long as they could read and write.
Was there rules for teachers? Did
Yes.
teachers have to follow rules?
Oh, yes, there were a lot of rules. I told you that the teachers weren't allowed to marry or even date. A lot of teachers actually sometimes lived with one of the families of the students. And there were a lot of rules that they had to follow too.
I think that's it for the schoolhouse.
Okay. One other thing I wanted to show you was the schoolhouse clock. And you can see it's got a pendulum in it, and the pendulum's going back and forth. That would be another job for one of the students. They'd have to take a key and wind the clock so that it would run. Most of them are a 7-day clock, I think. So every 7th day, someone would wind it up, and so it would be working for the rest of that week.
So were kids ever sloppy when they ate in school?
Well, probably. I'm sure there may have been a few accidents where something spilled, but I think it was up to that child to clean up after themselves. And we didn't have a janitor. In fact, the students had to erase the board, and they had to sweep the floors. So the children did a lot of the work around the school too.
Did they have to wear uniforms?
No. No
Certain clothing?
I'm sure they probably had accepted clothing that they had to wear. The long skirts, and the boys wore the breeches with their socks and boots.
And here's one. Where is it? Did all children go to school?
Probably not. I don't think it was required, but
Mostly boys, though.
Mostly boys,
A
yeah.
lot of girls didn't attend school because of, you know, they went to what's referred to as the dame school,
yeah.
where they learn how to be ladies,
Mm-hmm.
with learning how to serve proper tea and how to sew. And unfortunately, back in those days, the boys were the lucky ones that were able to go to school. So there probably would have been more boys in the class than there would have been girls.
Sure they were.
Depends on what you mean by lucky.
Oh, last question. Were girls allowed to play with boys?
No, not according to this. You would get lashes if the boys and the girls played with each other.
Yeah.
Very strict about keeping them separate.
Yeah, and they sat on opposite sides of the classroom as
Yes.
well, and hung their coats on the opposite sides. When the boys and girls were separated.
Okay.
Well, thank you, boys and girls. I hope you enjoyed your one-room schoolhouse today. I think now you're going to
We're
one more activity.
We're gonna talk about spies during the Revolutionary War.
Cool.
So I'm sure that you're probably all familiar with the name John Jay. Our high school here in East Fishkill is named after him. That's because he and his family spent time here during the Revolutionary War when the British occupied Manhattan. And Judge Jay was the head of a group called the Committee of Observance, and Judge Jay was actually the some call him the forefather of modern espionage, because he was the one who, along with George Washington and a few other people, formed what was known as the Culper Spy Ring. And some say that the idea for this was actually talked about here in Fishkill, which the town of East Fishkill was all Fishkill at one time, actually called the Rondout Precinct. There was the village of Fishkill, but the towns were not incorporated back then. Judge Jay, one of Judge Jay's brothers, actually invented what is known as invisible ink, where messages would be written down and sent, and they would use lemon juice to bring out the letters in the message. One of the other ways that they would send secret messages was something called ciphers, where they would use the alphabet and numbers that would correspond with the alphabet. Now, I have put up, and I believe that they have gotten ciphers, and were they given the key? They were, okay. So I've put a couple of messages up here on the board that, if you would like to take them down and see if you can decipher what the messages are. Let's see who's the first one that can do it. That would be great.
Can you see it in the?
I'm not going to write anything down on the board yet.
Not for them.
And then it's backwards.
No, it's not. It's only backwards for you.
Oh.
But you can see it all in there.
Yep, perfect.
I think I'm going to actually try to solve this myself. I'm standing in the way if they're not able to see this.
I'm trying to keep it as steady as I can.
Okay. Maybe a little blank. Has anybody responded?
Not yet.
Well, I've written the one out already, so they're going to see that. And I'll tell them who Deborah Sampson was. I think the second one I'll leave up there to see who can figure it out. So the first one I have up on the board, I have deciphered the code, and it's the name Deborah Sampson. And now, Deborah Sampson, I know that there are books about her. I don't know if anyone has read any books about Deborah Sampson, but she was the very first woman to ever enlist and fight in the Continental Army disguised as a man. And she fought in the Continental Army for over a year before she was found out. And she served with the 4th Massachusetts Regiment. She was from a small town in Massachusetts. And she actually did fight here in the Hudson Valley, mostly in Westchester County. And as I said, she fought for over a year before she was found out.
This is gonna be super exciting because we're going into our American Revolution unit next after Colonial unit. She's gonna be a big part of that.
Oh my gosh.
So that's awesome.
Well, we know a very, very wonderful actress who lives outside of Boston, Massachusetts, and she started a company called History at Play, which I think the children would absolutely love seeing her performances. And she started her business by portraying Deborah Sampson.
Oh, that's neat.
And for our encampment event that we had last spring, not spring, in the fall, she was here and she did the Deborah Sampson performance for us. And we're actually, for our Colonial Days encampment this year, she is coming back. So we can let everybody know when that is going to be. It'll be in September. So when the new school year starts.
Everybody can
And it
actually
will be
visit.
outdoors. It will be outdoors. But it's,
So I know another famous spy of Dutchess County. Another famous spy was Enoch Crosby.
yes, Enoch Crosby.
Yes, he was. There's a marker for him in Fishkill.
Yeah,
Yeah.
Enoch Crosby was actually a double agent.
Double agent.
Mhm.
But he wasn't a true double agent though, because he made himself out to look like a double agent. But he would get friendly with the British and the Tories, and they all thought that he was a Tory. And then he would gather information, and he would go back and he would tell his information to most likely to John Jay or someone else in one of the other higher ups in the Continental Army. But most of the patriots believed that he was a Tory as well. So there were times when he was almost killed on both sides. But he lived to survive the war. I believe he lived to about 86 years old. And there is a very well-known book by James Fenimore Cooper, who wrote Last of the Mohicans. The book is called The Spy. And the spy in that book is named Harvey Birch. And the book is loosely based on Enoch Crosby. It's a wonderful, wonderful story. Very hard to find, the book. I have a copy of it at home, which I had a special order a number of years ago. But I think you can probably find it online somewhere. And he actually owned, down in Brewster, New York, his house is still standing, actually. It's privately owned. It's down off one of the reservoirs there.
You know what I think we should do, Mr. Zolter?
Yes.
Is I think maybe if Mr. Roberto can zoom in on this code, we'll leave this one blank.
Mhm.
So we'll leave this one blank, Mr. Roberto, and we'll have the kids solve this for their badge.
Okay.
Their spy badge that they're going to have to earn.
I think that's a great idea.
Yeah, because I think they're super excited to get to toys and games. I think they
Okay.
might be super excited about
Okay.
that.
I think that's fine. That's great.
Did you want to add anything though about spies before we end here, or?
Spying was very dangerous work, and one of the things that if you were caught spying in civilian clothing, you could be executed. If you if you were a spy for the British and they caught you in uniform, you probably would go to prison. Maybe be exchanged for another prisoner, but it was, if you were caught behind enemy lines in civilian clothing, that was the, probably the worst thing that you could ever do, and that's what actually happened to Major John Andre, who was a spy for the British, and you probably may have heard of him through the name Benedict Arnold. And Major Andre was caught behind enemy lines in civilian clothing, similar to what I'm wearing, and he had the plans for West Point in his boot, and they basically made him strip his boots off, and that's how they were able to find the plans and find out that Benedict Arnold was a traitor. Yeah. So we have one more thing to move on to, and we're gonna do the toys now.
And it's
Or do you have-
time
or
for
do you have a
toys
question?
and games. So are we gonna go outside?
Yes,
for
we're
that?
gonna go outside for the toys and games.
Got it?
Right.
And we're.
You want that power cord again?
I'll come back in and get it.
Are we on?
You want me to hold that?
I'll just put it on the floor.
You want that bench there?
No, I'll just put it down. Someone wants to take a turn holding the camera. My back is.
Can you monitor? Yeah. Or we can have Jen monitor, it's showing.
Are we on?
Yes, I just have to get you.
Are we ready?
Yes.
Oh, I'm sorry. Hi.
Do you want to introduce?
It's Ms. Wolf again with my friend Jade. I'm going to be showing you some toys. Well, we're going to be showing you some toys that kids would play with when they had time, and each one was a learning experience also. So, I've heard that you guys also play pickup sticks at school with pencils, and these are our pickup sticks. So, it would teach them patience and actually hand-eye coordination too. So, take turns grabbing sticks. If you move a stick, if the pile moves, then you lose your turn. So the whole thing of the game is to get the most sticks. So that was one of the games they played when they had time. Maybe in the winter, when there was nothing to do. Candles are already made, bread's made, butter's made. Another one was Jacob's Ladder. So we have this one. It also teaches hand-eye coordination. You just go back and forth. Oh yeah, that one was hard to do. These all, and you made your own toys. And a lot of these toys we play with still today. We have the whirligig, or sawmill toy. Hand-eye coordination, also build strength, and pull it back and forth, and make it go, or wind it up.
We just learned about this week, the whirligig.
And you can make your own with a piece of branch with 2 holes in it, string, looped in, boom, you get one.
So we had learned that if colonial children were lucky enough, family to have a button,
Yes.
they would use the button.
The old button, you can
Yes.
old coin,
you can even, if anything you can find to make it work. Actually, I have one with an old coin and it keeps cutting me, so that's not a good idea. They also play dominoes, and adults also play dominoes too in the tavern when they're having a nice drink with their friends. We have tic-tac-toe. If you were lucky enough to have marbles, they'd be able to make marbles out of clay. Or they had glass marbles too, but those are for the really rich kids. This is a tic-tac-toe piece of wood with, and have, do you know how to do tic-tac-toe? X's and O's. You can also do it in the ground. They did a lot of things in the ground. Hopscotch, tic-tac-toe, anything you can think of that's
Hide and seek, tag,
Throw
tag, hide and seek.
hide and
Throw
seek,
manure at each
tag,
other.
and then okay.
Be careful. You okay?
What else is over there? I know you guys have a cup and ball. You all got it at school, and that's part of your badge. So you have to get the cup and ball. You have to get the ball in the cup. And that's hand-eye coordination. You think it's going to be easy? It's not. I've only done it 4 times today. So I would not be getting my badge. Okay, the next one. Braces. Girls and young ladies do this. It's really quick. This is fun. I'm going to show you this at a later.
Is that
And they taught them to put because you were wearing a corset, right? And you can bend over. And they're just back and forth. And then the stick. And we run up there. This is fun.